Hello everyone, this is the fourth video of my series of Orbital 2016 Spaceflight Simulator for beginners, and today we are taking a look at how to align planes with, for example, the ISS or Mir, or another vessel in orbit that you want to dock to, for example. So let's just go into an example I have created. Let's wait for it to load up. And this is just an example. This is not something that you have to do right now. This is just an example where I'm showing you what to do in the future when we are going, for example, for a trip to the ISS or something like that. So as you can see, we have a perfectly circular orbit, and when that's done, we're, for example, going to target the ISS and catch up with the ISS and dock with the ISS. So in order to do that, just press select and press the align planes, and then you have to target which kind of vessel that you are going to align your plane with. It could also be the moon, for example, because we are at the Earth, and but for this we're just going to target the ISS. So this MFD comes up. So what we need to take a look at here is the relative inclination. The relative inclination tells how much far away, how off we are from the plane of the ISS and the plane of us in orbit from overlapping each other perfectly. So we are a little off, as you can see right here. And what we need to do to lower the relative inclination is that we have to do some burns. And this is the descending node, and this is the ascending node. Okay, hello guys, this is aligning plane, and I just wrote them up on my whiteboard so I can explain things. So this is the align plane MFD, we say, for aligning the plane with the ISS, and we have the descending node and the ascending node, and the P here stands for orb projection around the orbit. So in order, what we want to do when we're aligning planes is that we want to bring down the relative inclination as close to zero as possible, and not as close to zero, but we need to bring it down to zero exactly. So what we want to do is that we're always going around this way in orbit, so we're gonna coast around to the ascending node, and just a little before you get there, you have to press, for example, if you arrive at the ascending node, and it's always like this, no matter if it's Mir or ISS or any other vessel up in the sky. So when you arrive at the ascending node, you have to press the anti-normal button, and if you coast around to the descending node, you have to press the normal plus button, the D and AN. So in order to bring our, for example, if we are here, like in this example, we're going to coast around to the ascending node, we're going to have to press normal, anti-normal, and then it will say about 50 seconds before you arrive, and it's all about how big your relative inclination is. But it will say something before, so you have the time to actually lower your relative inclination. So that's really how to lower, or lower and just deplete the relative inclination to align your plane probably with, for example, the ISS. And over here we have Mir, which is also an example of the ascending node and descending node. Then we have orb projection around the orbit, and as you can see, we are going to coast around to the descending node, which means that we have to press the normal plus and just a little before, because we just have to bring it down before we get all the way to the descending node, and the MFD will automatically tell you that you have to press one of these buttons, either the normal plus or the anti-normal. and it says when to fire and when to stop firing, and I will show that as an example further into the video, but it's just the same example with the ISS as with Mir and other vessels up in the sky. So yeah. Okay, so now we're going to align our plane with one of the ISS. As you can see here on the map MFD, the green line right here is our path around the Earth in the orbit. That's our plane, and the yellow one is the plane of the ISS. And we want them to overlap each other completely, so that we can meet up perfectly with the ISS if we're going to dock with it or anything like that. And don't you worry, I will explain how to use the map for these things later on, and what to use the map for efficiently. But let's get into doing our burn. So let's say we're going to the ISS, and we have targeted the ISS. So now we are going to time warp a little bit until we get around to the descending node, and let's just press F8 so we get this bigger MFD up. Then just time warp until you get to the descending node, and then we can start already now just go into the normal plus position, because it's the descending node. So when it's time to burn, it will say that we have to burn, and when it said, for example, right now it says kill thrust, and that's because we don't have to burn right now. So let's just wait for it. Let's time warp a little bit. Let's just go to translation, because we might need to use some small corrections with the 9 and 6. Okay, so now it says that we have to engage the thrust. Just press the plus key in. Then you have to watch out for this, which is going to be lowered, and it needs to be perfectly 0.00 degrees. Just keep burning. This Tn is the time to the descending node. And as you can see, the two planes are getting closer together, which means we are aligning our planes. Now it's pretty low, so that's very good. And this is a relatively big burn, because it's usually not that big if you get the heading right and all that, but I will explain that later. Okay, so let's keep burning. And now it's just going up, so you don't really have to burn right now. So turn off the normal autopilot, and don't care about this, because you don't want it to raise more than necessary. Because if you keep burning when it's going up, then you're just getting out of the alignment. So let's coast around to the descending node, and you can see the two planes are almost overlapping each other completely. So we are going to the descending node again right now. So we're going to go into the normal plus and just time warp. And then let's deplete the last bit. And we still need a little bit, So let's coast around again to the descending node. Normally it would also burn at the ascending node, but this is moving while we're burning, so just in this case we just keep burning at the descending node. So let's go into the autopilot and let's fire the engines. And it is 0.00, and this is the estimated thrust to deplete the relative inclination to get it to 0.000 exactly. But since it's 0.00, we are in perfect alignment with the ISS. So this was one example. So if we take another example, okay, so here is the orbit MFD, and let's go into align planes, and then we can target a mirror, for example. As you can see, it's a bit higher. It's 88.65 degrees, which is pretty much pretty much enough to deplete almost all your fuel, which is not very good. So in order to get up in orbit, so you use the least fuel amount as possible to do the relative inclination, to do the alignment burn, there's something you have to do on the ground, and that's what is called the heading. Because if we fire now at the ascending node and descending node, we're going to use a lot of fuel. So this is just the explanation of how to get efficiently in orbit and do an efficient alignment burn, because this is definitely not efficient fuel wise. So, and that's why, for example, when we go into the ISS, we have to do some planning ahead of takeoff. So for example, if we're going to the ISS, we need to have the right heading, the heading for the ISS, which can be calculated and is called the launch azimuth, but I will explain that, and we're gonna calculate it later on in the series. But let's first just go over the calculations, because this is just beginners, so let's not go into the calculations right now. So, but yeah, so you have a heading of about 42 degrees when going to the ISS. And when you arrive in orbit, then you're going to have a pretty low relative inclination, like about 3 or even 1 degrees. It can even be 0 point something, so it's much lower, and it's going to save you a lot of fuel and is therefore more fuel efficient. So this is just an example of how to use the align plane MFD when you are aligning plane with, for example, it could be a vessel up in orbit, for example, another delta glider that you want to dock with. You can actually do that with aligning the plane. You can also go to Mir or ISS. You can also even align with a lot of different things. So, but this was just a tutorial on how to align, and then we will, in the next video, go into getting to the ISS, which is going to be pretty exciting, I think. So thanks for this one, guys, and I will see you in the next video about going to the ISS. Peace.